6 months ago, I proposed to my girlfriend of 3 years with a ring I had saved up for months. The moment she said yes was the happiest of my life. We moved in together shortly after planning our wedding and future. But something changed. Late nights at work became frequent. Secret text messages raised questions. Then came those words I never expected to hear. She needed space but wanted to keep living in my apartment and wearing my ring. Let me tell you how it all played out. Before I start, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever trusted someone who betrayed you. I am Lowell, a 32-year-old software engineer working at a tech company in Boston. My story with Samantha began 3 years ago when she joined our department as a project manager. Our first interactions were strictly professional, collaborating on various software projects where her organizational skills complemented my technical abilities. We started getting to know each other during lunch breaks in the company cafeteria. I noticed her infectious laugh, and the way she always remembered small details about everyone on the team. There was something refreshingly genuine about her that stood out in our often impersonal corporate environment. Our friendship developed organically over several months. We discovered shared interests in indie films, hiking, and a mutual addiction to true crime podcasts. The transition from colleagues to friends happened so naturally that I barely noticed when our casual coffee breaks started feeling more like the highlight of my workday. The first official date happened after a company happy hour. Everyone else had left, but we stayed lost in conversation about our childhood dreams and future aspirations. Walking her to her car, I finally gathered the courage to ask her out properly. Her smile when she said yes made my heart race in a way I had never experienced before. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. Weekend hikes turned into overnight camping trips. Movie nights became opportunities to meet each other's friends. Within 6 months, we were spending nearly every night together, either at her place or mine. The connection felt effortless and right in every way. On our second anniversary, I made reservations at Sorellina, an upscale Italian restaurant, where we had our first real date. I had been saving for months to purchase the perfect ring, a 2-carat diamond set in white gold that cost $15,000. When I dropped to one knee between the appetizer and main course, the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded yes, unable to speak through her emotion. The applause from the surrounding tables made the moment feel like something out of a movie. The following weeks were a whirlwind of excitement. We created Pinterest boards for wedding ideas, toured possible venues, and shared the news with friends and family. Everyone commented on how perfect we seemed together, how our energies complemented each other so well. When the lease on Samantha's apartment came up for renewal, we decided she would move into my 2-bedroom apartment to save money for the wedding. I cleared out my home office to create a makeup and dressing room for her, wanting her to feel the space was truly ours, not just mine that she was visiting. The first signs of trouble appeared so subtly that I dismissed them. Samantha started coming home later than usual, explaining she was putting in extra hours at work to impress her new manager. At first I admired her dedication, even making sure dinner was warm when she finally got home at 9 or 10 at night. Then came the text messages. She would smile at her phone but quickly turn it away when I approached. Several times I caught glimpses of a conversation with someone named Brian, but when I casually asked who she was texting, she would say it was her sister or a girlfriend from college. The wedding date got postponed once, then again. First, she wanted more time to find the perfect venue. Then she thought we should save more for the honeymoon. Each reason seemed logical on its own, but together they formed a pattern that made my stomach knot with anxiety. During this period, my best friend Marcus noticed the change in my demeanor. Over beers one night, he asked directly if everything was okay with Samantha and me. I found myself defending the relationship more strongly than the situation warranted, insisting we were just experiencing normal pre-wedding stress. "Marcus, you know how women get about wedding planning," I said with a forced laugh. "They want everything to be perfect." His expression told me he wasn't convinced, but he didn't push further. Instead, he simply said, "Just make sure you're not ignoring red flags, man. You deserve someone who treats you with the same loyalty you give." I brushed off his concern, but his words stayed with me. Still, I couldn't bring myself to seriously consider that Samantha might be being unfaithful. We had built so much together, shared so many intimate moments. Surely I would know if something that fundamental had changed. But the signs continued to accumulate. The physical intimacy between us dwindled. Where we once could barely keep our hands off each other now, weeks would pass without any meaningful connection. When I initiated, she would claim exhaustion or a headache. I started to feel like a roommate rather than a fiancée. Dinner conversations became superficial, focusing on work, gossip, or TV shows rather than our future together. The wedding planning binders gathered dust on the coffee table. When I brought up specific details about the ceremony or reception, she would redirect the conversation or say she needed more time to think about it. I began to feel invisible in my own relationship, like a background character in a story that was supposedly about us building a life together. Still, I held on to hope that this was just a phase, a temporary rough patch that all couples experience on the road to marriage. I had no idea how naive that belief would prove to be. One Tuesday evening, Samantha came home unusually late, just after 11 p.m. Instead of her typical excuse about work, she set her bag down deliberately and said, "We need to talk, Lowell. It's important." The seriousness in her voice made my heart drop. I turned off the television and gave her my full attention, trying to quiet the alarm bells ringing in my head. "I think we should postpone the wedding indefinitely," she said, her voice steady but unable to maintain eye contact. "I need some space to figure out what I really want." The words hit me like a physical blow. For several seconds I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. When I finally found my voice, it sounded foreign to my own ears. "Space, what does that mean exactly? Are you having doubts about us?" Samantha sighed, twisting her engagement ring around her finger. A gesture I once found endearing now filled me with dread. "I just don't feel ready," she explained. "I love you, but am not sure if I'm ready for forever. I need time to be certain this is what I want." I struggled to understand what had changed. Just months earlier, she had been excitedly planning our future together. Now she spoke like a stranger, distant and detached. "Is there something I did, something I can fix?" I asked, hating the desperation creeping into my voice. "It's not about you," she insisted. "It's about me needing to be sure before we take such a big step." The conversation spiraled into our first truly serious argument. As we discussed logistics, Samantha dropped the bombshell that truly stunned me. "I think I should stay here while I sort things out," she said, "and keep the ring. It's been given to me after all." My mind reeled at the audacity. She wanted to indefinitely postpone our wedding, take space from our relationship, but continue living in my apartment and wearing the expensive ring I had sacrificed to purchase. In that moment, I should have stood firm. I should have recognized the fundamental unfairness of her request. But I was still in shock, still desperately holding on to the belief that this was temporary, that she just needed time to work through her doubts. "I can't say I understand, but if you need time, I can give you that." I conceded a decision I would soon regret deeply. We arranged an awkward living situation. Samantha moved her essentials into what had been my office, now her dressing room. I took the sofa, unable to imagine sharing a bed while in this relationship limbo. Each night I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we had gone from planning forever to living as uncomfortable strangers. The following week was excruciating. We moved around each other carefully, like dancers afraid to step on each other's toes. Dinners were eaten in silence or separately. She came home later and later, offering no explanation for her whereabouts. I lost focus at work, making careless errors that earned me concerned looks from colleagues. Sleep became elusive, my mind constantly replaying our relationship, searching for the moment things began to unravel. Had there been signs I missed, red flags I ignored in my infatuation? The turning point came when Samantha left her phone unlocked on the coffee table while showering. I had never been the type to snoop, believing trust was fundamental to a healthy relationship. But the constant anxiety and uncertainty had worn away my principles. A notification appeared from Brian. "Can't wait to see you tonight." Still our usual spot. My stomach twisted into knots as I scrolled through their message history. The exchanges were flirtatious, intimate, in a way that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. There were inside jokes I wasn't privy to, plans made behind my back, even complaints about me and our relationship. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to confirm my suspicions. The next evening, when she said she was having dinner with coworkers, I followed her at a distance. She went to Mistral, one of the most expensive restaurants in Boston, where she met not a group of colleagues but a single man. Through the window, I watched them interact. The way she threw her head back, laughing at his jokes. The casual intimacy of their hands touching across the table. The look in her eyes I once thought was reserved only for me. Each gesture was like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I returned home before her, sitting in darkness, as I processed what I had witnessed. When she finally arrived, I turned on the lamp beside me, startling her. "Who is Brian?" I asked quietly. Her face drained of color. "What are you talking about? I saw your messages, Samantha. And I saw you with him tonight at Mistral." She cycled through reactions, rapidly denial, minimization, and finally, a partial confession. "Hez just a friend from work," she insisted initially. "Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other." I responded, surprising myself with my calmness despite the storm raging inside me. After several more denials, the truth finally emerged in pieces. Brian was a client she had met through work 3 months ago. What began as professional admiration had developed into something more. She claimed nothing physical had happened yet, but admitted to having feelings for him. "I was just confused," she explained, tears finally appearing. "I needed to be sure about us before committing forever. Brian understands me in ways that you don't always seem to." In that moment, clarity struck me with brutal force. I wasn't dealing with someone genuinely confused about her feelings. I was dealing with someone who wanted to keep me as a safety net while exploring options with someone new. The apartment, the ring, these were securities she didn't want to relinquish while testing the waters elsewhere. The pain was overwhelming, a physical ache that radiated through my chest. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and wallet and walked out, needing distance to process the magnitude of the betrayal. I wandered the streets of Boston for hours, eventually ending up at Marcus' doorstep after midnight. One look at my face told him everything he needed to know. He welcomed me in without questions, offering a spare room and a strong drink. That night, as I lay in an unfamiliar bed, I finally allowed myself to break down completely. The future I had imagined, the life we had planned together, had been built on shifting sand. Now the tide had come in, washing it all away and leaving nothing but painful questions in its wake. I stayed at Marcus' apartment for 2 nights, barely eating, mostly just processing the shock and betrayal. My friend gave me space but made sure I wasn't alone with my thoughts for too long. On the second evening, he invited over 2 other close friends, Jordan and Taylor, for what he called an emergency intervention. "Look, you're hurting and that's normal," Marcus said as we sat around his living room. "But we need to talk about next steps." Jordan, always the practical one, asked directly, "Whose name is on the apartment lease?" "Just mine," I admitted. "We talked about adding her name after the wedding." "And the ring?" Taylor inquired. "How much did you spend on it again?" $15,000, I said quietly. "Most of my savings." They exchanged glances before Marcus spoke again. "You need to talk to a lawyer," he insisted. "That ring isn't just any gift. It's a conditional gift given specifically for marriage. If she's calling off the engagement legally, she should return it." I hadn't considered the legal aspects of our situation. The thought of approaching this from such a pragmatic angle felt strange, almost cold compared to the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. But my friends were right. I needed to protect myself. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer specializing in family law. During our consultation, she confirmed what Marcus had suggested. "An engagement ring is considered a conditional gift in Massachusetts," she explained. "If the condition, getting married, is not fulfilled, the gift should be returned to the giver, regardless of who ended the engagement." She also clarified my rights regarding the apartment. As the only person on the lease, you have the legal right to determine who lives there. While there are some protections for established cohabitants, given the short duration of her residence and the circumstances, you would be within your rights to ask her to leave with reasonable notice, typically around 30 days, but in your case you could probably justify a shorter time frame. Armed with this information, I took a personal day from work to clear my head and make decisions. I spent hours walking along the Charles River reflecting on our relationship and how I had allowed myself to be manipulated. The more I thought about it, the more I recognized patterns of selfishness I had previously excused or overlooked. I deserved better. This realization didn't come easily. It fought against years of conditioning to prioritize her happiness above my own. But once the thought took hold, it began to reshape my perspective on the entire situation. By evening, I had made my decision. I would return to the apartment and reclaim my space and my dignity. The thought of confronting Samantha still made my stomach churn, but staying at Marcus Place indefinitely wasn't a solution. I decided to return home, unannounced, partly to gather some additional clothes and toiletries, partly to rip the bandage off quickly. What I found when I unlocked the door stopped me in my tracks. Samantha and Brian were cuddled together on my sofa, the same sofa I had been sleeping on while she supposedly figured things out. Empty wine glasses and takeout containers cluttered the coffee table. They sprang apart when the door opened, Samantha's face registering shock and then alarm. "Lowell, I thought you were staying with Marcus," she stammered. Brian stood awkwardly, a tall man with the polished look of someone who spent significant money on his appearance. Obviously, I wasn't who either of them expected to see. Instead of the explosive anger I might have displayed days earlier, I felt an odd sense of calm. The scene before me confirmed everything, removing any lingering doubts or hopes that there might have been a misunderstanding. "You must be Brian," I said evenly. "I need to speak with Samantha alone." "Please leave." "Look, man," he began, but I cut him off. "This is my apartment. Your name isn't on the lease. Leave now or I call the police for trespassing. Your choice." Something in my tone must have conveyed my seriousness. After a quick glance at Samantha, who nodded slightly, he gathered his jacket and phone. "I'll call you later," he murmured to her before slipping past me. Once the door closed behind him, Samantha immediately went on the offensive. "You can't just barge in here like this," she said indignantly. "We agreed I could stay here while I sorted things out." I laughed, genuinely amused by her audacity. "Sorted things out? Is that what you call bringing another man into my home? Onto the couch I've been sleeping on." Her expression shifted, attempting to soften. "It's not what it looked like. We're just friends." I'm still trying to figure out my feelings. I was done with the lies and manipulation. The clarity I had found during my time away gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. "You have 48 hours to move your things out and return my engagement ring," I stated calmly. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious. You can't just kick me out. I live here too. Your name isn't on the lease. We aren't married. The ring was conditional on a wedding that you are now indefinitely postponing while you explore things with Brian. Legally, I can ask you to leave, and I am." Samantha seemed unable to process that I was standing up for myself. In the 3 years we had been together, I had always been the one to compromise, to put her needs first. This new version of me clearly unsettled her. "You can't do this," she insisted, her voice rising. "I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight this." "Feel free," I replied, surprising myself with my continued composure. "I already spoke with one. Massachusetts law is clear on both the apartment and the ring. You have 48 hours. If you need more time for the move, you can put your things in storage at your expense." She shifted tactics, her eyes welling with tears. "Does 3 years together mean nothing to you? How can you be so cold?" The accusation might have worked days ago, but now I recognized the manipulation for what it was. "It meant everything to me," I said quietly. "That's why finding you with another man in our home hurts so much. But I respect myself too much to be your backup plan while you figure out if the grass is greener with Brian." Samantha cycled rapidly through more tactics, from pleading to anger, from promises to threats. She warned she would tell our mutual friends I was being unreasonable, that she would make things difficult at work, that I would regret treating her this way. Each threat only confirmed I was making the right decision. When it became clear I wouldn't budge, she demanded more time and tried to negotiate keeping the ring. "The ring cost $15,000, I reminded her. "If you want to buy it from me for that amount, you can keep it. Otherwise, it returns to me within 48 hours along with my apartment key." With nothing left to say, I informed her I would be staying with Marcus again and would return in exactly 48 hours. As I packed a bag with more clothes and necessities, she continued arguing, but I had said all I needed to say. With a final reminder of the deadline, I walked out feeling a weight lifting from my shoulders with each step. True to my word, I returned to the apartment exactly 48 hours later. Marcus came with me for moral support and as a witness. In case things got complicated, I half expected to find Samantha still there, prepared to continue the fight, but was surprised to discover she had actually complied with my request. The apartment was notably emptier. All her clothes, decorations, and personal items had been removed. On the dining table lay her key and the engagement ring, along with a note. I chose not to read immediately. Instead, I checked the ring first, a habit from my engineer background to verify facts before proceeding. Something felt off as I examined it. The weight seemed slightly different, and the sparkle lacked the fire I remembered from when I first purchased it. Taking it to the window for better light, my suspicion was confirmed. The center diamond had been replaced with a cubic zirconia or some other simulant. The setting was the same, but the stone that had cost me most of the $15,000 was gone. "Marcus, look at this," I said, handing him the ring. "Does that look like a real diamond to you?" He examined it carefully before shaking his head. "No way. That's definitely a fake. You think she switched it?" The realization that Samantha would go this far deepened my understanding of who she truly was. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had planned to spend my life with, would never have done something so deceitful. Yet here was the evidence in my hand. I photographed the ring from multiple angles, then called my lawyer to explain the situation. She advised me to send a formal demand letter requesting either the return of the original diamond or financial compensation equal to its value, warning of potential legal action for theft and fraud if not addressed within 2 weeks. The letter was sent the next day. Surprisingly, 13 days later, I received a response from Samantha's lawyer. Along with the letter was a small package containing the original diamond. The accompanying legal correspondence claimed there had been a misunderstanding and that Samantha had removed the diamond for cleaning, forgetting to replace it before returning the ring. We both knew this was a face-saving lie. But with the diamond returned, I chose not to pursue the matter further. With that final chapter closed, I began the process of rebuilding my life. I rearranged the apartment, removing the feminine touches Samantha had added and reclaiming my space. The home office that had been converted to her dressing room was restored to its original purpose. I sold the engagement ring through a reputable jeweler, receiving about 60% of what I had paid for it. Though a significant loss, the money funded a solo trip to Seattle and Portland, places I'd always wanted to visit, but Samantha had vetoed in favor of beach destinations. The early days were undeniably difficult. I would wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Cooking meals for one felt strange after years of partnership. The silence in the apartment sometimes grew oppressive, a constant reminder of my new solitude. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. I reconnected with hobbies. Samantha had subtly discouraged my interest in rock climbing, attending live jazz shows, taking cooking classes. I joined a local hiking club and started volunteering at a community center, teaching basic computer skills to seniors. Through these activities, I began building a new social circle, one based entirely on my own interests rather than as half of a couple. The friends who had stood by me during the breakup remained central to my life, but new connections brought fresh perspectives and experiences. 3 months after the breakup, I realized I had gone an entire day without checking Samantha's social media or wondering what she was doing. It was a small victory, but significant. The ache that had felt so unbearable was gradually subsiding, replaced by a growing appreciation for my independence. 6 months later, I unexpectedly ran into Samantha and Brian at a restaurant across town. They seemed tense, hardly speaking to each other. When Brian went to the restroom, Samantha approached my table, asking how I was doing with an interest that seemed genuine. I learned they had broken up just weeks after she moved out of my apartment. According to mutual friends, Brian had already been seeing someone else when he started pursuing Samantha, a pattern of behavior she discovered too late. "Lowell," she began hesitantly, "I made a terrible mistake. I threw away something real for something that wasn't. Do you think there's any chance we could talk sometime, maybe see where things stand? Looking at her, I felt no anger, no desire for revenge, not even the pull of attraction that had once seemed so irresistible. Instead, I felt something unexpected: gratitude. Her betrayal had forced me to find strength I didn't know I possessed to establish boundaries I had previously been too afraid to enforce. I wish you well, Samantha, I said sincerely. I truly hope you find happiness, but we can't go back. Too much has happened, and we've both changed too much. The conversation was brief, but brought a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. As she returned to her table, I felt the last lingering threads of our connection finally release. 2 weeks later, I met Allison at a cooking class. Our connection developed slowly, built on honest communication and mutual respect. When I eventually shared my experience with Samantha, Allison appreciated my openness and shared her own past relationship lessons. We established clear boundaries and expectations from the beginning, creating a foundation of trust that felt more solid than anything I had experienced before. Looking back now, I understand that losing Samantha was actually finding myself. The pain, though intense, was temporary. The lessons will serve me for a lifetime. I learned to value my own worth, to establish healthy boundaries, and to recognize that genuine love should never require sacrificing your self-respect. Sometimes the greatest gift is discovering a betrayal before making a permanent commitment. As painful as that moment of discovery was, it ultimately led me to a path of greater authenticity and joy. And for that unexpected outcome, I am genuinely grateful. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a relationship? Did it make you stronger in the end? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. Your support means everything as we all navigate the complex journey of relationships together. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest growth.